The notion that I came up with, as I said, 3 users walk into a bar. And the concept is that if these 3 people were to walk into a bar on any given night, right, would you hand them all a Pabst Blue Ribbon at the same time? Probably not. They're either going to tell you what they want, right? They're going to order a drink and be very explicit about what they want. Or there's even nonverbal cues. You can look at them and probably assume they want something different. And so the contrast I'm drawing there is, in a lot of cases with discussion forums and publishers online, we do have lurkers. Looks like they've got my aspect ratio a little off, so I think the font that I use is not a supported font on this machine, so we're going to have to deal with a little bit of ugliness. Sorry about that. We've got, wow, it gets a lot worse on the other slides. I'm seeing the preview here, so apologies in advance. But I will try and translate to the best of my ability for you guys. So the point is, we have lurkers, people who are coming in from the search engines, logged in members, just your typical folks, maybe they're not heavy posters, and power users who are there multiple times a day, posting dozens of times a day. And on a lot of these sites, they have identical user experiences. And so that was kind of the contrast that I was thinking of when I said, this sort of 3 users walk into a bar notion. And so, the aspect that I want to talk about is the desire for personalization. And personalization is not a new concept, right? Burger King, have it your way right away, right? And I look at something like TiVo. The reason TiVo has been successful is it allows you to create a customized stream of the shows that you want to watch when you want to watch them, right? And certainly if I were the producer of the evening news, I would love to be able to create a completely customized telecast for every one of my users watching at home with only stories that they're interested in watching. But that's completely impossible to do. And the thing that makes that interesting with the internet is that that's actually very possible on the internet. You can take all kinds of cues from your users and provide highly customized experiences to help them engage more deeply and more fully, and also customize experiences that affect monetization. And so some examples of that that you cannot see are the fact that Yahoo claims to serve 6 million versions of their homepage on any given day, taking response from cookies that their users have and their browsing history and their logged in preferences and things like that. Facebook, their homepage is arguably the most visited page in the history of the internet. And it's a customized activity stream of what users are interested in, what's relevant to them inside of their social graphs. And so while we may not all be able to be Yahoo and Facebook in a day, we can be very thoughtful about the content that we're creating, the content that we're putting in front of users, and how it's possible to tailor that given the information that they're either providing to us explicitly or that we can infer from their activities using our sites. And so that's what I want to get some ideas on. And so it can be intimidating. You open up the create a new thread or start a new article, and it's this big white empty box staring you in the face. And as Jeremy alluded to, it's not always easy to be a writer. And so what can you put inside of that box, and what hints can you get from your community to ensure that it's something that they're going to be interested in? Wow, this font thing is really crushing me here. So what this is supposed to say is there are elements of indirect feedback. So indirect feedback is stuff that's totally passive, it's not stated by your users. And I've got 3 examples here that we can dig into. First, you can take, I'm going to start really easy and get a little bit harder. So the first one only takes 10 seconds. One thing you can do is just go to your forum root, right? And so you go to your forum root. This is a community that I really admire. I think the folks at Hypebeast have done a really nice job. They create some really great editorial content. And so I said, take the 10-second example, go to your forum root, and you can see the number of users viewing each subforum right now, right? And it's explicitly stated that there's more people interested in denim and high fashion brands than there are in footwear or general sneaker discussion. And that takes 5 seconds for you to realize that your audience is coming in through search engines and search queries that are taking them to those types of threads, and that you'd probably be best served generating content on those types of topics. So that's the lowest barrier to entry one, and you'd be shocked when I've talked to different site owners that we work with about their content strategy, how they'll say, but my users are only interested in this, right? And you go into their forum root, and sure enough, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people reading about completely different topics that they're not covering with their content. And so that's the 10-second one. If you want to get a little bit more sophisticated, you can start digging into your analytics and look at where is your activity actually happening. So this is from one of our sites, and I've actually run these same queries on a whole number of our different sites and realized that it often looks very much like this, where the content is very concentrated on a small number of topics. And so this is actually two different dimensions. We look at both the number of search engine visits that are landing in any given subforum, as well as the number of new threads being started in any given subforum. And so you can be confident that those two are highly correlated, as is demonstrated here, but I think the concentration is pretty shocking. And so this is actually a skiing site, and though it's a little bit hard to see, you can see that ski gear discussion and member gear reviews have substantially more search traffic coming in, substantially more threads being started, and yet when we've talked with the site owner, there's a real push to invest in resort-related content. And so you can think about it either way. You could say, yes, I'd like to improve the amount of traffic I'm getting to my resorts because I'm surprised at how little it is. Or you could say, double down where you're strong and dominate in gear, right? And that's another way to think about the type of content that you might want to be focusing on. Another opportunity is to think about relating the content that you're writing. So now that you're creating content that's more relevant and responsive to what your users are looking at, you have to think about ways to relate that content and keep users on your site. And so someone that I've had the good fortune of working with and is actually here with us today is Jude Mancia. And Jude is the founder of a site called headfi.org. And you might think, okay, headfi, it's about headphones. There must be dozens of people who care about headphones. And in actuality, since founding the site, Jude's grown it to now more than 1 million unique visitors a month. It's a phenomenal community, and I think it's in no small part due to the fact that Jude pays attention to what his users are talking about and then creates great content in response to that. And so recently he started a program called Headfi TV, which you can see here, where he's doing product reviews and talking about the same things that his users are talking about in a high quality way. And another thing that Jude's been great at is once he's talking about a certain pair of headphones and relating it to other headphones, he's then able to relate that content to product review pages or to other related discussion threads. And so that way, whether it's a user who's there all the time, they're then finding their way into more conversations and more ways to interact on the site, or for search engine users coming in, they're immediately seeing other relevant content that will keep them on the site for longer. And so I think there's a couple things that can be learned here. One is that aspect of being able to relate your content. The second is something that I did gymnastics for 20 years, and my coach used to always say, if it was easy, everyone would be good. And that's the truth. It's not easy. You have to invest the time. You have to pay attention to what your community is doing, and you have to invest in writing good quality content to keep them there. It's the only way to be successful in the long haul. So those are some of the methods for catching indirect feedback. The feedback that is totally passive, that you don't need to interact with your users to get just by observing. So I also have 3 examples of how you can get direct feedback, how you can just ask your users what they want and be able to respond, and then that interactivity leads to greater engagement. So I've got 3 examples of that and some examples of some phenomenally successful properties and how they've leveraged these types of opportunities. So the first and most simple way to get direct feedback, like I said, is just to ask. You can put a poll up. All of our sites have polling functionality, and you can put a poll up asking users, what are you interested in? Hey, if I'm going to hire a writer, what do you want them to write about, right? Or if I'm going to produce video content, what should it be about? Just ask, right? There are other sort of more automated ways to do things. You can put it inside of your registration flow, right? So inside of the registration flow, you can give people opportunities to say, what am I interested in, right? Whether it's alpine skis or California resorts. And in that example, you can immediately sort of subscribe them to topics where their activity feed on the site and what their content that they're being exposed to is immediately tailored to their interests, and it's immediately subscribing them to email notifications with content relevant to their interests. And so that's a great way that once you've gathered those interests, you're then reaching out to those users and presenting them with content that you know they're going to be interested in because they told you that they're interested in. And that's a really great way to do it. And, a property that I think has done a phenomenal job at leveraging that kind of push methodology of once you know what your users are interested in, continuously reaching out to them proactively with good content is Bleacher Report. And if anybody has never been on Bleacher Report, it's a sort of crowdsourced blogging service for sports content. And they have hundreds and hundreds of these bloggers writing about everything happening in the sports world. They do a phenomenal job of categorizing it. And so I was reading about my man Andrew Luck and him chasing down the Heisman race right now. And as I'm reading that article, I get a pop-up saying, "Are you interested in more college football content? Enter your email address." Very easy, I can dismiss it instantaneously. Or if I put my email address in, now Bleacher Report can bombard me whenever they want with great, relevant college football content. And if I'm reading about my Washington Redskins and a heartbreaking loss to the Dallas Cowboys last night, they'll offer me a customized, customized report of Washington Redskins content. And they do a really fantastic job at proactively reaching out. And you can see that their Quantcast graph, it's a little out of focus, but that goes from 0 to 80 million page views a month in pretty short order. These guys have really done a nice job, and I suggest you spend some time browsing their sites and getting some inspiration from both the caliber of content that they're creating, the methods they're using to create it, and how they're proactively reaching out to their users to ensure that they're getting more of it. Another example, and Jeremy touched on this, a little bit of gamification, and I really liked his explanation there, that you want to inspire good behavior without incentivizing bad behavior. And so I think we can look to services like Reddit and understand the importance of a reputation system and how you can incentivize your users. And so in the example of a Reddit, the users will bring the content to you if you incentivize the right behaviors, right? And so in an example like Reddit, you're not just incentivized with a post count, right? And we all know within our communities, if you just incentivize a post count, you can get some pretty bad behaviors at times. And it's not exactly going to create high caliber content all the time if you just are really pumping post count. But what Reddit does and what other services do is suggest that not to incentivize volume of content, but to incentivize content that creates the most reaction, creates the most interactivity and response. And so in a community like Reddit, it's very important to be the first person to bring a piece of content that the community is going to enjoy. Because if you're that first person, you're going to get the most thumbs up and the most upvotes for this being an interesting piece of content. And so in that situation, these passionate Reddit users are out on the internet at all times looking for content that they think their buddies back at Reddit are going to be interested in. And so they're proactively looking for great content and bringing it back to your site where the interactivity is happening on your site. And I think that's a fantastic usage of sort of gamification or reputation systems where you're incentivizing the right behavior, which is bringing high quality content that will lead to more engagement within your community. And so I think that's a really fantastic lesson to take home when we're thinking about our own communities. I'm going to talk a bit about monetization and touch on a few of the things that Jeremy mentioned. I'm going to talk about personalization. And I can stop if anybody wants to talk more on the content side, or we can kind of hold questions to the end. I'm pretty easy about that, but I thought maybe we would tie it all together in terms of understanding, now that we're trying to supply more personalized content, higher caliber content, reaching out proactively to our users to bring them back with great content, how should we think about how we're generating revenue with that engagement? And so I split it into the same groups that I outlined at the beginning, our 3 users who walked into the bar. We've got power users, and that was a great point that Jeremy made. In a freemium model, chances are you want to monetize your heaviest users, but that's difficult in forums because your heaviest users are the ones creating the best content and creating the most content. And you don't want to do anything to disincentivize them from doing that or push them away from your site. And so arguably, you don't monetize your power users. You can turn ads off or give them options to turn their ads off and provide as much of a frictionless experience as humanly possible to keep them on their site and participating actively and effectively. But there are some folks that I think have done a really nice job in terms of how you do monetize your power users. Some examples are sort of premium memberships. So, supporter benefits where for X dollars you get 2X the value, right? And you can do that because if these are your most passionate members, then sponsors are willing to do special things for them because it's your heaviest users. And so maybe you can get free magazine subscriptions for them, or DVDs, or books, or any type of thing that you can give them away for free And so, the idea is for $30, you get $60 worth of free gear, right? And that's an opportunity where all the things are coming in from sponsors for free, which is no cost to you, and you're able to monetize them through sort of a premium membership program. You can give them badges, as Jeremy mentioned, and other ways to be recognized that they're supporters of this community. So that's one opportunity to think about how you monetize power users. Another community that I really admire and I think is doing an incredible job is Ravelry.com. Again, kind of same notion as I mentioned with HeadFi. How many passionate knitters are there out there? But an enormous number. And that community is one of the most highly engaged that I've ever come across in terms of a niche site. And I think they do a fantastic job. And every time I go into their store, they have all sorts of branded swag. Ravelry branded knitting bags and Ravelry branded pins and all these sorts of things. And they're always sold out. They run limited edition runs of these types of things. The community is so passionate about the brand and so passionate about being a member of that community, they buy all this branded gear. So not only are they out walking the streets marketing the community on behalf of Ravelry, but Ravelry is making revenue on that. And it's a really, I think, inspiring example of building a community that's so engaged and so passionate, but also then creates a really compelling revenue stream for that business. I think looking now a little bit more broadly to your moderate users, the regulars who are coming by but aren't perhaps in your top 1%, top 2% of contributors to the site. One thing that we've talked about there is to leverage your site's brand in a sponsorship opportunity. And so, again, Jeremy was very insightful in mentioning that there is this huge commoditization going on in advertising, but if you can offer a differentiated value proposition with a very valuable audience, you have an opportunity to sort of rise above the noise and build some compelling sponsorship opportunities. And so something that we've worked on when you have a hardcore headphone enthusiast community is how do you, obviously the headphone brands want to be a part of that, but how do you give them the best return and the most exciting opportunities? And so one thing is we give a completely different ad experience for logged in users versus logged out users. And so for those logged in users, we actually brand it with what headfires have to say about this headphone, right? You quote users who have said things, and we have voting units where they vote which pair of headphones are the best, or these types of interactive opportunities, and we find that the interaction rates with those advertisements and the click-through rates with those advertisements for those logged-in members are an order of magnitude higher than if it was just sort of a bland brand ad, right? And so that's one opportunity where you can take advantage of the fact that these users are really passionate about the community and bring content to them that's going to make them want to engage around this sponsorship. So certainly when you're talking about monetizing your logged in members, be as relevant as possible and really focus on engaging them, because that will create a return for the brand and that will keep the brand coming back. And then lastly, we go to the search visitors, people who are coming in that are logged out and coming in via search queries. And so the notion there, you see the same sort of advertisement. That person has no idea what site they're on, and chances aren't going to be very responsive to the brand of the site. They're there looking for content. And so in that case, focus much more on the brand who's advertising. And in that case, as Jeremy said, you can do site skins, you can do those kinds of things. Where you're really putting the brand in front of those users. We've also found much more effective in terms of click-through rates and performance to really target that content. And so look for sponsors that are interested in really owning an audience of a particular subforum of your site or a particular segment of content within your site, because when the more relevant those advertisements are, the higher click-through rates you'll see. And the other side of it, as Jeremy also alluded to, is the ability to do lead generation or affiliate marketing. And we'll have a whole panel discussion on that later, and certainly there are a lot of folks in this room that understand this incredibly well. But if a user is coming in with a search query from Google, and I think I alluded to this a little bit in the last time we were together at ForumCon about the fact that Google is such high intent traffic. It's someone typing into a box, this is the information that I want about this thing, right? And chances are, if they're coming in with anything including, biodynamic Tesla, right, and landing on a page with content about that pair of headphones, being able to see, or the Sennheiser H300s, being able to see that price and click through is a really relevant opportunity, the engagement there is valuable and highly monetizable. And so those search visitors, putting those kinds of lead generation performance marketing opportunities in front of them is a really great opportunity. So that is the end of what I had to say in terms of trying to be more thoughtful about the content that we're putting in front of our users and taking the cues that they give us to help grow engagement and grow our sites, and also how we can monetize that through sponsorships and some of the commoditized advertising that Jeremy mentioned. So, this is sort of some new branding we've been messing with Huddler, sort of saying sometimes your friends don't have all the answers, right? But in forums, these are the most knowledgeable, passionate people out there, and certainly they're great resources for finding this incredible content. So, yeah, that's what I had in terms of hopefully giving you some food for thought on how to go back and focus on your content and growing your communities. Happy to take some questions. Do you have a question? We're a software platform, yeah, and we have forums at our core, and we work with, sort of like I said, the most knowledgeable and passionate sites and site owners out there, and migrate them to the platform that we built and help them grow and monetize.
How are you selective as to who you choose, probably?
We get a little picky, but I think that's good for everyone. And so, yeah, we try to really partner with people who want to focus on growth and want to focus on their content and community so that we can focus on technology and monetization.
Have you found that any of your, because everything you're talking is so content driven, and you're talking about the owners of the forum producing the content, whereas this year's forum has been much more about the community itself. Have you noticed any resistance or difficulties in people having that change of mindset?
I think it's a great question. I'm certainly not advocating a move to purely editorial-driven content. I mean, that's the contrast between a blog and a forum. But I think if you're thoughtful and you listen to the cues from your community, they can be very symbiotic. If you create good, quality, compelling content that's on topic for the things that your community are interested in, I think the premium example of this is Mac Rumors, right? They have this homepage that makes you think that you're on a blog, right? And it says, 716 comments. But you click on a comment, it dumps you to a discussion thread, dumps you right into the bulletin. And they do a phenomenal job at creating great editorial content, but the engagement is all happening inside of the discussion forums.